Welcome to the making of the Amanita Cottage video. I combined the old videos and I'm redoing the audio because I got a lot of complaints about the music being too loud on the last one. So I combined part 1 and part 2, and this is part 1, which just shows you basically how I, in my process, come up with a concept. And most of the time it just starts with a sketch. Some people are more meticulous and more careful, and they will actually do, dimensional drawings and almost architectural design on it. I'm not like that. I like to fly by the seat of my pants. So in this case, with this project, I was trying to recreate a childhood project that I did. And please try and ignore the fact that this first sketch is slightly phallic. But basically, when I was a kid, I grew up in Belgium, and that is where the Smurfs, known as the Schtroumpfs, were conceived and created. So when I was in preschool, I don't have a lot of memories of childhood, but I do have a memory of making little Smurf houses out of cardboard and paper. And I always kind of loved that project, and it just stuck with me because it turned out really cute. And so as a dollhouse enthusiast, I always had this idea of having a 2-story mushroom-shaped dollhouse. And yes, this drawing is getting more and more phallic looking. But don't worry, my next drawing will get better. But as you can see, I am just drawing out the ideas and kind of formulating what I would do with this dollhouse if I were to build it. And I put in stairs and a fireplace, and if you can see everything, the chimney's crooked and all this stuff. But I'm just kind of figuring it out as I go. And then I'm like, 16 inches would probably be good diameter for this house. So I redid the drawing and made it a little clearer, a little less naughty looking. And that was how I did my concept sketch. And I had my husband cut out a piece of plywood at 18 inches for the base. And then I did a really rough sketch of the floor plan for the first floor. And then I started basically just building it. I use bass wood for most of my projects. I do not use balsa wood. Balsa wood is not strong enough and not lasting enough. I had at that time, and I still have it, but I use my real Dremel now. But I had this little Dremel knockoff that I got from Harbor Freight. It was like $10. And it came with a bunch of different bits, and one of them is kind of like a little boring bit. And so what I did was I would bore the channel, and then I would use this 1/8 thick, I think, 1/8 thick, inch thick basswood ply from Midwest Products. They have a bunch of different dimensions. They have it in 2 inches, 3 inches width. They have 1/4 inch by 1/8 of an inch. I mean, you can find pretty much any dimension. It actually, some of it mimics the 12:1 scale of actual construction wood. So like 2x4s and 1x6s and all that stuff. So yeah, they usually have them at your craft store. They're in kind of a metal like rack, and they have a whole variety of different types that you can get. So the plywood was still damp, which made boring it a little bit hard. Also the fact that the wood runs in different directions, but I still managed to bore out little channels and put the pieces in. And here I am kind of separating out where the doors and windows are going to be. Now this is going to change as I go along, and that's just how I work. That's my process. Some people, again, plan well ahead of time and have all the dimensions pre-cut. That's not me. I will just do a loose drawing, as you can see, and just build from there. These are the windows that I assumed were going to be on the stairway, but I mismeasured how long the stairway would be, so I would have to move the windows before then. So here's the first floor, and I want to get everything on the first floor done before I put on the second floor, at least most of it. So the walls were here. I ran out of the basswood, so I couldn't finish bases, but that was the door and the kitchen window. That's the fireplace. And then the 2 narrow channels on the other side are supposed to be where the windows are. I just hadn't run out. I had run out of wood to do the bottom part. But those are going to get filled in anyway, and I will be moving the windows. So that was the very start. And then my husband cut a set of dollhouse stairs with the railing on the left side, and he cut it lengthwise for me, and I just pulled off each step and glued it along the rounded wall. And wherever there was a gap, I just used a little piece of basswood and made a little landing. And I think it worked out pretty great. It came out a lot longer than I thought it would, but I just roll with the punches. That's just how it is. Here I added some curves to the front door and to the kitchen window. And I also cut in the new windows and painted. And the new windows are rounded. I painted it this pale green because I had this idea that I was going to whitewash everything, and I wanted to have the color kind of peek through. It's not obvious, but it would just be a hint of that color. And then I built the chimney roughly, but as roughly as it was built, it doesn't matter because I covered it in pebbles. This is the beauty of working with a bunch of different materials, is that you can cover up a lot of sins with your finished material. Sorry about that. But yeah, so here I am framing out some of the cabinets under the stairs, and I also put in the flooring, and I also put in some botanical wallpaper print. And as you can see, this is it before I started really putting in the cabinets, and I finished doing the pebbles on the chimney, and I also put the fireplace for the second floor in so that they're connected as fireplaces and chimneys are. So framing out the cabinets and the kitchen cabinets. Oh, and I mortared the chimney. Sorry, these pictures are out of order. I had to pull all of this material from different social media sites, so and putting it together was kind of challenging. But here are some more views of the progress so far. This is just after I mortared it. It makes such a difference once it's mortared. It looks so unified. So I am just putting cabinets together, putting little elements here and there, some little dowels. I bent the cupboard doors on a pot of paint by wetting it and strapping it on there. And then I put a countertop on, and I started building drawers and trimming them out, building shelves, cabinets in the kitchen. You can see the little knobs there that were on the floor. And the doors are now bent and in place, and you can see the mess that is made from working on these things. I started building the upper cabinet doors, and I used dowels and little cylinder dowels to do a pin hinge on each one, and you can see them on the top and bottom of the cabinet there. So you see the floor has been put in. You can get these little popsicle sticks. They're probably like a 1/4 inch wide, and they're in a bag of about 100, and you can use those as flooring really nicely. This is the base of a little wood stove that I built because I really wanted a wood stove kind of set into a chimney instead of just a fire. She needs a place to cook, Miss Townsend, who is the resident of this house. So I'm starting to frame in the second cabinet. I've got some working windows. They're very rough, but trust the process. And as you can see, they do open and close, and I already put glass in there, or plexi. And I framed in the fireplace, and then I was fitting the base to make sure that the footprint for the stove worked well. And you can see how much dust there is, and there's a naked Fison doll there, ignore her. Yeah, I generate a lot of dust when I'm doing my woodwork. But as you can see, there are cabinet doors and with the pin hinges, and I have the other one ready to go. And then I'm showing the window, and I'm showing that the drawers are all trimmed out and put in. And here is a secret drawer in this little triangular area. And then, of course, the stairs. And so that cabinet part looks pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with it. Again, I'm doing all this detail work before I put on the second floor. Otherwise, it would be really hard to do all of this if there was a second floor there. Here I'm showing the cabinet doors. They're not perfect fits, but the trim hides the sins. So this is the little stove in its rough shape. And it's basically just a box with a little top, and I used another pin hinge thing here. And I'm going to be using iron paint to cover. Well, first I used black 3.0, and then I put iron paint over that. And it actually is magnetic because there's actual iron infused into it. So it will help keep the door shut when I put a magnet on there. So I'm not quite finished with it yet, but I need to put in the window panel and the flickering flame. Look at my other videos to see how I created a flickering flame for inside the stove. I think it's a pretty recent one. Probably you'll see a little pumpkin on it or Halloween stuff on it. So the cabinet door's open. I also installed the front door with carrying on the theme of rounded windows in the front door. Sorry about that. I'm going to turn off my sound. There you go. So yeah, this is where it is so far. Cabinet doors haven't been glazed yet, and I still need to trim out the bottom cabinet doors. I had run out of that very thin little stock. As you can see, I've got the flickering bulb installed. I hadn't cut the window in the stove yet, and I hadn't painted it yet, but we'll get there. So yes, this is where it gets worse before it gets better. I stained the floor and painted the cabinets that green in order to get that undercolor, and then I'm going to whitewash it. And here it is when I whitewash the floor after I stained it. Looks so good. I think the paint I used was a little bulky, but here's some. I whitewashed the cabinets and put in some stencils using my Cricut. I also put some leading on the windows and on the cabinet doors eventually. But as you can see, I've got most of the painting done. And I don't like the edges, but it is what it is. But I whitewashed everything. It looked good. I'm happy about that. And then we move on to leading the windows. Cabinets are leaded and glazed. And holes are cut for the windows, papers in. And I'm going to show you me installing the doors and putting the trim on it. It's really super thin stock. And yeah, you can get that. Again, that's Midwest Products. That one is I think it's 1/16 thick, and it's 1/8 of an inch wide, and it is easy to bend. So I used this chalky finish paint. I kind of wish I hadn't. I really like using actual house paint instead of craft paints for doing dollhouses, because craft paints are really bulky and thick, and house paint is more refined, and it just makes a better finish, and it captures more detail. This will actually erase detail because it's so thick. And I also overpaid for this chalky finish paint. It was ridiculously expensive. I can just go to Benjamin Moore and get a sample pot, or Sherwin-Williams or whatever, and get sample sizes, and that is plenty to do dollhouse projects. Second floor is on. Stove is painted with iron, and I'm going to cut my window into the stove. I had a little thin piece of oval glass, so I just sooted it up. I used a little black paint to make it look sooty, and used a bulb from a flameless candle and jerry-rigged a fire for it. And look how adorable that is. Is it not? I used jewelry findings to kind of zhuzh it up a little bit. It needs another coat of paint, but look how perfectly it fits in place. Miss Townsend has a little stove to cook on, and I think it looks adorable. So yeah, so far, so good. It's already shaded from the second floor put in, and I've already started putting up the edge walls, the edge wall frame, I should say. But the windows are leaded. I've already got stuff in the cabinets. The fire's going. Now onto the second floor. So I installed the second floor, and I put up just a barrier wall on the outside to start the process of building the second floor walls. And you can see how rough it is. I just put pieces and little parts along the wall to make the wall structure. And don't worry, I'm going to hide all that behind 1/16 basswood veneer. I'm going to make a wainscot. Now that is the last of the, and I'm just air quoting, straight walls. After this, above that is going to be the curved wall transition into ceiling that will comprise the carved out bit of the mushroom cap. Meanwhile, I'm doing the popsicle stick floor, real easy. The second floor, the base of it is actually three 3-inch oh my gosh, basswood. I think it's 1/8 inch thick. And I just kind of glued them together and kind of laminated those two vertical strips in order to kind of fortify the joint between the three pieces. And I just used those to kind of create an interest in the floor as well by building the wood floor between each of those strips. And I think it looks pretty cool. I'm not being meticulous. I never am, especially with something this organic and kind of randomly shaped. It's supposed to look like it's built inside of a mushroom. So I just kind of cut using my miter shears. I just cut things and put them in as I went using a pencil to mark them off. They have gaps. I don't care. It's shabby chic. It's organic. And it's whimsical. Doesn't have to be perfect. There goes the last piece. Bada bing, bada boom. So now I'm going to start veneering the inner wall and covering up that ugliness. So there you go. I'm putting in some 1/16 basswood in 3-inch or 4-inch. I think it's 4 inches. And I will be covering up the joints with pieces of trim. So I live by these clamps. I got a huge bag of them on Amazon, and they are so useful. That and the miter shears are probably the best tools I have to work with, and my little fake knockoff Harbor Freight Dremel that I got for $9.99. So here I am using the Dremel to kind of clean up the edges around the stairs where the stairs merge into the second floor. I'm sanding down, and I'm sanding down the edge here with the Dremel to make a more, I don't know, better arc because it was kind of lumpy. But it looks better, cleaning up edges. And now I'm trimming out the verticals on the wainscot. And there you go. And I'm also trimming out the little fireplace, which is the only spot where I didn't put the veneer. And there you go. My glue dries very fast because it's old. But there, all the windows, all the wainscot is in, and you can see before it looks ugly, and then now look how smooth and pretty that looks. And there's a nice transition between the downstairs wall and the upstairs wall. I also took this time to create a stained glass window in the front door and also in the round windows. I use my Cricut, and I use vinyl to do the leading or the caming as they call it. And then I use glass paint to paint the voids in between. Now, if you see, the balustrade is in. And I started by using twigs from a blueberry bush in my backyard. And I put them in, and I'm like, they're cute, natural, but I think they'll look better when they're painted the same colors as the cabinets. I've gotten yelled at about that. Some people think I should have left them natural. I think you should just deal with it. I think it looks nicer with the balustrade being integrated. And I haven't put the railing on yet. Started whitewashing the second floor, and I also started building the armature for the wall to ceiling transition, the dome, so to speak, that will comprise the mushroom cap. And I used, again, more basswood, but I used a hot glue gun just to tack things in place. But I am going to tell you right now, do not use a hot glue in any dollhouse projects. Hot glue is great, but it does not last. Humidity will cause it to loosen up eventually, and it will lose its strength, and it will come apart. Trust me, I've been doing dollhouses for 30 years, and this is my experience. So to strengthen this armature, I also put a big glob of wood glue on each of the joints as well. I really didn't have to, but I think I was just trying to make sure it was strong, but once I put the putty on, it's going to become so strong that I probably didn't need to do that anyway. But here I am using mesh that is for screen doors. Very cheap by the yard. You can get it at your hardware store. And I cut it into little squares, and I'm basically filling the voids between the armature to create kind of a substrate or some sort of surface on which I can start putting putty. And once I do that first layer of putty, it's going to be like having strong cardboard. That stuff will dry fast and dry hard, and it will create a perfect surface upon which to build more putty and kind of make a plaster finish for the inside of the dollhouse. And so I am hot gluing it again, and I hate working with hot glue. It burns my fingers, but it is kind of necessary if you want a quick result rather than waiting for things to dry. All of this is just going to get covered, so as ugly as it is, it's just going to be covered up like an armature for any type of sculpt. So, yep, putting in the screen. Sorry, my throat's drying out. For 20 minutes solid of talking. And of course you can see I hadn't painted everything yet. And here I am also kind of putting mesh along the bottom so that the putty doesn't kind of seep down or anything like that. And I am solidifying my joints and working around the dormers and making sure that there will be a nice transition between the putty and the outside or the exterior of the dollhouse. And I'm working on right here. I'm fortifying the dormers, making sure they have nice strong edges, and all of this is just going to get merged into putty or into the material that I'm going to use for the mushroom cap. So the product that I used is Durham's Rock Hard Water Putty. And as you can see, I'm just putting on what I would call kind of a skim coat. And basically it's doing is hardening the mesh. So I'm squishing it in there and it's kind of squooging out on the other side through the mesh. And I'm just kind of spreading that out, over. And so, making like a little skim coat over the mesh. And that is going to dry into a super hard surface that I can then add more layers of putty. And as you can see, it's ugly, but it's all going to be covered up. I keep saying that. Finish materials always hide a lot of sins, just like paint does. But as we go on, I'm adding more of the putty. I'm sorry that I did this for TikTok, so I have the portrait set, and I'm losing a lot of the stuff that I'm doing here. You can't see some things, but you can use your imagination. And you can see it's an ugly skim coat, but it did dry very, very hard. So this is the product. I think I paid $2.16 for it, and I got 2 cans, and I think I used 2/3 of this can completely so far. And if you look, this is rock hard, knock, knock, knock. And you can see I did a second coat starting right on one side, and I was kind of working towards the other. So you can see the difference just by putting a second coat. It's already looking pretty nice. And I'm just showing that even with that one little bit of the putty, it's already super strong. You can see there's no daylight coming through on the right side. Here's some aluminum foil where I'm starting to do the armature on the outside of the dollhouse and start creating that organic shape. Again, I jump back to the dome to show you the second layer is done. I'm showing here that there's still some other little pieces and problem areas that I need to cover up, but after this third layer, it's going to be done. It's already looking pretty great though. I did scrape off all the excess that went onto the wainscot. I whitewashed the wainscot. I'm putting in the horizontal trim, using some dowels to hold it in place while it's drying because it needs to get pushed into the bend. So now we start with the foam clay, and it was the first time I've ever worked with it. It's a really versatile product. I'm kind of surprised how cool it is. It wasn't cheap. I would never use it unless I had something to build it on. You have to have some kind of armature. It's basically like working with non-sticky marshmallow fluff. And as you can see, I'm showing that the first layer, you can see the roughness of the aluminum foil kind of coming through. But in the areas where I put it on thicker, look how smooth it is, and it has that kind of neoprene, kind of bouncy, rubbery, foamy feel to it. It's very cool. The thicker, I know it sounds intuitive to say this, like duh, but the thicker you put it on, the smoother it will finish. It actually puffs itself up as it dries, and so the smoother you put it on, the puffier it gets, I guess. And if you put it on thin, it will really show what's underneath it. So I'm going to do a second coat. I used 2 containers of this stuff to do the exterior of this dollhouse, including the mushroom cap. You can sand it. I did here. It leaves a sanded texture though, and it paints really well. This is the product. It's called Cal Palmy Foam Clay. A 500-gram bucket, I think, was $20. It probably might be up more because of inflation. But 2 of these to do it. Great product. I'm pretty impressed with it. And yeah, so as you can see, it has a really smooth finish when it dries. Put it on thick, put it on as smoothly as you can. And here, as you can see, it's really thick on the bottom and it's really smooth. So I did some painting with stencils, more Cricut stencils, and added in the light fixture, the wires hidden between those things. As you can see, there's my aluminum armature for the mushroom cap. And I stopped putting on the foam clay on the mushroom cap. And yes, the lights work. I'll tell you why I stopped doing the mushroom cap foam. It wasn't coming out smooth enough. So what I did was I got some batting. It's actually hat mulling, but batting is the stuff that you use to put to do quilting. And I put a layer of that on top of the aluminum foil and then put the foam clay over that, and it made for a much smoother finish. So here I am doing a second coat on here, and I'm trying to smooth it out as much as possible so it will finish smooth. And again, make sure you don't have too many fingerprints in it, and smooth it out as much as possible. It will smooth itself out on its own, but again, the smoother you put it on, the smoother it will come out. And I'm covering up all those little bumps and little imperfections because of the aluminum foil. And it really is, again, I recommend this product a lot if you want to have kind of an organic surface on there. It might work for plaster buildings too. So far this is where we're at. I used the wires to connect a 12-volt light fixtures on there, 12-volt system. It's just 2 lights, so I just connected them directly and put the little plug through. And yes, I got carpal tunnel while I was doing all this, so it was kind of limiting. But yeah, I have the plug coming through the bottom of the chimney and connected the upstairs and downstairs lights to that. So here it is, covered entirely in foam clay, and you can see how much smoother the roof is compared to the stock, and that's because I put that batting in there. I wish I'd made the mushroom cap a little thicker. I might actually add some more on later on. I still haven't decided that. It is paintable, and once again, because I am ADHD and that makes me impatient and hyperfixated, I went forward and painted with craft paints, even though I wanted to use house paints, but I didn't really want to wait to go and buy it. So I went ahead and started using craft paints. And as you can see, I didn't want to leave it pure white. You know, no mushroom is pure white. And this mushroom has been around a while. And so I'm adding a kind of a messier brown finish, and I will be adding some algae as well and some weep stains. And yes, I am going heavy-handed with them, and I do this a lot when I'm doing textured painting. And although it may look really, really dark, I am going to dry brush over that and make it subtle again and just show a hint of that coming through. So as you can see, I'm kind of going over that again and kind of hiding that heavy-handed green algae and weep stains and all those things underneath just a really thin layer of paint. So it's there. You can see it. It looks, you know, a little old. It looks worn in. I was really happy with that. But yeah, it paints really great. And then onto the iconic red roof. Now there are yellow amanitas and there are orange amanitas, muscarias, and I really had to have that red because it's so iconic. So once again, I used craft paint and I hate myself for that, and I will explain to you why that is later. But in the meantime, I am just giving a few coats to this roof, and it is definitely a lot smoother with the batting. Yeah, that definitely helped smooth, create a smoother surface. Here I'm aging the edges, and I wish I had kept the stronger coloring that I use for aging. I think it looks a lot cooler, and the more I see it on this movie, the more I wish I'd kept it. I might repaint the roof again after maybe a little finish sanding, because using craft paints, you get, as I said, they're bulky, so they leave behind little ridges and paint brush marks and all this stuff, and I can see things through the roof that I do not like, through the paint on the roof. So I'm giving it one more coat of red. I really like the black and the brown on the edges. I think it looks cool. I might redo that someday. This is where I made my mistake. I, at the beginning, thought, oh, I want it to be very Smurf-like and have the big cartoony dots all over. I mean, for a little while, I thought it was freaking adorable, and I was happy with it. But as I went along, I'm like, I'm not too keen about it. And I kept looking at it, and I wanted it, because I don't want it to look cartoony. I want it to look realistic and a little gritty. So yeah, that's why I had like wear marks on the mushroom and, aging on the edge of the mushroom cap. I want it to look like it is a giant mushroom. Whoops. And so here I am aging a little bit more, and this is a quick video I made for TikTok, just kind of showing. But yeah, the big spots were cute for the moment. I liked them then, but I changed my mind. So here I put some, you can get these little moss puffs, I'm air quoting, from the floral section in your craft store. And I really wanted this little dollhouse to be nestled in greenery and have ferny things all over it and just be kind of just hidden in the forest. And you can see there's also windows in the round section, round windows. There's stained glass. I have birds. And here's a little animation I did for the holiday, I think 2021. And yeah, Miss Townsend is putting up a Christmas tree. So here it is decorated for Christmas, although there's flowers, but it still has the big spot roof. And so here, if you look, that is puff paint. And this is the process of me changing my mind. I wanted it to look more natural, more real. So I put puff paint to show how to create spots the way they are in nature, the way they actually look. This is me using Das Air Clay to add dormer awnings to each of the little windows in there, mushroom cap awnings. I super glued a couple of pins into the wall, just jabbed them in there, and added super glue as well before I put the air dry clay on there. I wanted to create a really solid bond between the air dry clay and the foam clay. It seems to have worked. They seem to have bonded pretty damn well. But I am shaping these dormers over every window and door on the mushroom stalk. I did try to be careful about making sure that the dormers don't interfere with the opening and closing of the door and window, and shaped each one into as mushroom cappy of a shape as I could. And here I am smoothing it out and adding that on. And now I'm painting them when they're dry. I've used puff paint on them too, and I'm painting over everything in the red paint, including the roof. Now, the reason why I hate using craft paint again is because all the ridges and everything shows from the dots, and you can see them through the paint. So irritating. So still to this day, I'm like, I look at this dollhouse and I can still see the dots hidden under the paint, and it pisses me off. But I will probably refinish the roof one of these days, maybe even put more foam clay over it and make it more rounded. I don't want to do it too much to compromise the chimney and the dormers, but yeah. I'm touching up the edges with a smaller brush here, just doing some detail work, and then I will use a dry brush, a white paint dry brush, to lift those textured spots out of the red paint. And as you can see, look how cute that looks. So here's another mistake that I made, and this shows you how I changed my mind. A few years ago, I went to a yard sale and found a huge roll of synthetic lace. I didn't know what to do with it. I can't use it for costuming because it's not real. So I decided, oh, let me ruffle it up and put it on the dollhouse. And for a little 30 seconds, I was like, oh, that's so cute. I really like it. It's so cottagey. But then I was like, oh, I effing hate it. It's got to go. So I just tore that thing off and built a new fringe, whatever that's called, with foam clay, and then I painted it and put more stencils on it because, you know, Miss Townsend is an artsy lady and likes her cottage decorated. So here's the interior as it is today, and Miss Townsend is now moved in. There's a railing on the stairs. Her copper collection is up. Her teacups are hanging in the window. Her bedroom is all set up with her sewing area. She has a bathing area and a washbowl and decanter. Fireplace. The exterior is beautiful. This dollhouse won the 2022 Oregon State Fair miniatures category. I have a doorbell on the outside, another one there, and added some little rusted elements from AliExpress to make the garden look cute. And here are some mushrooms in the window box. So yeah, that was like one of my last creative little things, was to fill that window box with mushrooms. I even did some of those little shelf mushrooms on the side. And then here I am doing a little final sweep before I added in the last exterior elements to make the garden a little bit bigger and expand it. So that's pretty much where it was on the finished state, on the interior. The only thing left on the interior that I really needed to do was the ceiling in the first floor. At least the only big thing that I needed to do still. So I took a piece of paper and I put it on the ceiling and used kind of folds and creases to figure out what shape the ceiling was. I pushed it in there and made sure that I creased it with my fingernails and got the shape of the ceiling. I should have done the ceiling when I did the floor, but I'm not exactly perfect at foresight and that sort of stuff. So yeah, that was the next and last, I think, big project that I did before I finished up the exterior of this dollhouse. And I had to throw it together quickly because the Oregon State Fair was coming up and I wanted to submit it as a contestant. So yeah, it was an interesting process, but as usual, I am kind of fly by the seat of my pants with it. So I did measure out where the center of the roof was so I could accommodate for the light hanging fixture. And I transferred my folding paper template onto a piece of card. And I think I used a page for scrapbooking type stuff. And I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, I see. I was using that as a circle. Now, one of my failings, I have many, of being a miniaturist and the way in my process is I not only, do things crookedly, as you can see I did there, but I also don't know how to edit myself. When I'm writing my books, it's different because I can just write the way I write and then go back and realize, okay, I need to delete this whole thing. It's repetitive or it's overkill or whatever. But with miniaturing, it's not quite so simple. Because once you build something, it's there, and once you paint something, I guess you could repaint it, but when it's installed in the ceiling, you don't want to mess with that. But I did overpaint this dollhouse ceiling, as I usually do. I just don't know when to stop. But here I am adding in some wooden elements. Some of them broke while I was cutting them because I used really 1/32, very thin basswood, and they didn't handle the knife cutting them very well. But it didn't matter because it was all going to get covered in paint. But as you can see, I just don't know where to stop with the trim. I guess I'm doing some sort of kind of a box beam look or some sort of trim look on the ceiling. At first I'm like, spider web kind of would look cool. So that was kind of the concept. And I started adding in some trim to look like a spider web. And I'm holding down the 1/32 stuff because wood glue makes it warp, which is annoying. But as you can see, there isn't a straight line really in this whole thing. There's no equal measurements. Everything is just pulled out of my derriere. But I didn't do an exact spider web. I didn't want it to be like cliche, but I wanted it to be spider web-esque. And so here I am adding in my little pieces of trim, and real easy peasy lemon squeezy. Don't always use cardboard as a backing on that, because sometimes when you paint it, it will warp and make your ceiling look warped. But again, I'm not too concerned about it. It's not like right in your face, so you're not staring at it. It's kind of a subtle thing that's going to be pretty much unseen unless you're looking for it. So that is what it looks like before I started painting it. And I painted it a brown. I wanted it to kind of slip away into the unnoticeable world, but I lifted out the beaming with a little bit of dry brushing. And then, of course, I couldn't stop, and I made it a little lighter, and I decided, every panel needs a bee. So I went and made some bee stencils with my Cricut, and then I'm like, the bees need gold, and I need a gold spot at every joint, and so there you go. There's the ceiling. Not in your face. Yes, over decorated, but hardly noticeable, right? And here's the ribbon that it won. Yay! And yeah, I'm super proud of that. So, time to put it back after I brought it back from the state fair. And you can see all the elements. It's still empty from being transported from the state fairgrounds. And here I am returning her little bed into shape. I remade all of her little linens for the fair. And she has a little table and rugs that are actually coasters that you can get on Amazon. And that is a bed, and Scarlet the ladybug, who is her pet, is laying by the fire. Here's the wash bowl and decanter being put back in place. And sometimes it's a little hard to do. And yeah, I made that little stand. Here's her sewing corner. She needs all those things. Here's a little dress form. And her little stool. And sewing box. There's a bunch of sewing boxes and fabric bolts that I got at the miniature fair, as well as this little miniature show tape measure that I got, which was teeny tiny. But everything is being put in place. Fabric bolts need to be leaned up against her machine. She's got things to sew. And there you go. And that other box has notions, trim and stuff like that. Very cute. So her bedroom needs a tea set, and her fireplace needs to be put in. And I also show how to make that fireplace or something like it on another video, so go back in my YouTube videos to find it. Here's a table and another one of those coaster rugs, and they're round, perfect for this little round space. Putting some books away. One of the lights is out. I need to fix that. And that was the only complaint I got from the state fair, was that I didn't provide I didn't have the lights on. I should have, but I didn't think they would have power available. I've been collecting little pieces of copper for her kitchen for a while now. So I have quite an extensive collection for Miss Townsend, and now I'm returning her books to the shelves. The little clock on the top shelf there is actually works. I gutted a watch and took the movement and put it inside the little clock case, and so yeah, it tells the actual time. Pretty cute. And these are some cookie cutters that my friend Monica gave me, and Miss Townsend loves to bake. She actually bakes for her little village. So she has to have lots of baking stuff and cooking stuff. I love the little chicken terrine here and all of her cooking implements. Some of these are miniatures that I pulled from Wish and AliExpress, and they were, very, very cheap. But they look really cute. Gotta hang her teacups up again. Each and every one. And put her cake forms back, her baking pans. Yeah, I had to use wax to hold those into place. And another one. And that one can go up here with the pots and pans. Yep, some lids. And her little measuring cups. I got a lot of these little copper elements off of eBay. And some of them have been in my collection for a long time. I've been collecting a rolling pin, one that I made, and one that I bought. And we got to find places for them. So yeah, on the mantle. Here's her little rocking chair and her knitting basket. So there you go. The Amanita Cottage, home for a little chipmunk named Miss Townsend. And this is it in its final form right now. Who knows if I'm going to do some changes. I think I might do some stuff to the roof, as I said. But with the lights on and the lights off, adorable. And that's the little doorbell. Ding-a-ling-a-ling. And that mushroom right there, I actually found at a yard sale, 2 of them, only a couple days before the state fair. So I put those in, and there you go. Miss Townsend is in her little chair, in her comfy little cozy home. Thanks for watching.